So you'll see a little bit my CV, but I am at the University of Edinburgh. I'll also tell you a bit about the University of Edinburgh, so if you're not aware of it. I have a very strange position. So I am at the university full time, but my salary is paid by a company. So I work also for Canon Medical. It's one of the big providers of scanning equipment for if you take a scan, if you go to the hospital. And I also have a fellow. So a fellow means you're affiliated with other institutions of the Turing Institute, which is the equivalent of Archimedes in the UK, in London. And I'm also an Ellis fellow. Ellis is the European Laboratory for Intelligent Systems. It's a pan-Europe organization about AI. Our website is Vios, means life in Greek, okay? And then you can also email me if you have any questions, or you can find me on Twitter. All right, why don't we start it? So we're talking about safety, right? And my way of lecturing or teaching or talking is very Socratic. So I will ask you questions and you expect answers. And I will not continue until I get answers, okay? Yes, huh? Right? So that's why I only have 10 slides. No, I'm not joking. Anyway, so why don't we go? All right, so how many of you have an Amazon Echo or a thing? So it says here, no, Alexa, I said order lunch. And then the rocket goes up, right? So now it's just a way to think about safety of something that you think so benign, like a smart speaker, and how easy it is to confuse input, okay? And particularly if you're Greek, have learned to speak English from watching TV, and then your wife is Italian, and you've lived also in Italy, so my accent is a mess. So my devices never understand anything. They understand my daughters though, which is funny. Anyway, so that's about safety. So before we get to that, I want to tell you a little about the University of Edinburgh. How are your examples? Olga, what did you say? 5? Okay. So I'll show you one example of memorization in another context, and then we'll stop there. So, so I showed you before that these AI models memorize, right? It's not my day today. So this is a very interesting experiment that was done a few years ago on large language models, right? The ChatGPTs, the BARDs, and everything. And it's very interesting. They found that if they send this as an input to the large language model and they ask it to fill in the gaps and I didn't do that. I didn't move. It found. I am an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. So you can find this pretext, and somehow, just by giving this information, he was able to completely regurgitate a whole sentence from the data verbatim. So large language models memorize like hell. They're full of memorization. Okay? Large language models, what they do is what they call they do compositional. They do a compositional learning. So they learn a little bit from there, a little bit from there, a little bit from the different texts, and they try to synthesize them. But once in a while, you can find the right prompt to directly extract information from the model, verbatim. Okay? Now, and these things tend to become even more problems when you start using the data supposedly from the internet, and somehow you are revealing the data that you were trained with, and then somehow you took a very relaxed interpretation of what's free in the internet and doesn't have copyright. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest things that might change what will happen in AI over the next 2 years. If these lawsuits, there are 4 lawsuits now happening simultaneously in the US. If any of those win, all of these things about generative AI will completely slow down because they have all been trained with what we call dirty data. Okay? And I'll stop here.